Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Kris. Sorry. Oh, facing. Don't know why. Let me move this light a little bit. Okay. Will that help? Probably not. Really? I don't understand what's happening with these lights anymore. I just don't know. All right. Well, this was requested. I got 2 drinks here, and I have to move both of them. I have iced tea. And then hot tea. I got a peach and lemon black tea with a little bit of milk. I normally don't. I know. I'm living crazy. And then peach tea mixed with regular black tea. Just for people who question what it is. It's just refrigerator cold. So it's nice. It's refreshing. Okay. This was requested. Sorry. Indonesia could be Asia's most strategic country. Here is why. Before we get started, I don't know why. I used to be able to scroll down. I can't do it anymore. For some reason, it doesn't want to scroll. So before I get started, if you can click that thumbs up, bare minimum. Subscribe to the channel if you like the content. Click on the thanks button and donate to the channel if you want to keep the channel running. Request a video. Your name sponsors that video. All right? Let's do this.
Region in the world. Heavy and middleweight global players.
Sorry, before I started recording, I enlarged the screen and then got sidetracked, so 8 seconds played off. I didn't pay attention. Sorry. All right. Now let's start the video.
The Indo-Pacific has become the single most geopolitically relevant region in the world. Heavy and middleweight global players like the US, China, India, and Japan sit at its fringes, making this region central in their security policies. Perhaps the most critical area in this region is Southeast Asia. At its political and geographical core is arguably the most strategic country on Earth. Indonesia, the country at the center of the Indo-Pacific region.
Stupid question. Does, because of where Indonesia sits next to China, does Indonesia, I know like Thailand and Vietnam and Taiwan, I know they all have issues with China and the man-made islands which are sinking, and their push for dominance throughout the China Sea. Is that what it is? So my question is, does Indonesia also, are they kind of lumped into that section of where they also have little issues, little run-ins with them? I'm not like, yeah, go Indonesia. You know, I'm just wondering if they're also in that group because they're near it. So I figured that they would probably have some run-ins here and there, but I don't hear about them as much. Let me rephrase that. I don't hear about the run-ins with other countries that China has as much as I do like with Taiwan, because Taiwan's, you know, America's number one protection in that region, I guess. And I know they have issues with Japan as well. But I'm just curious. Or is Indonesia more kind of neutral on them? Like they just are, you know, you do your thing, we'll do our thing. And
3 main reasons explain the Southeast Asian nation's strategic emergence. First, the centrality of Indonesia in the global sea routes. Second, the diplomatic importance of Southeast Asia in global power balance and the US-China rivalry. And third, the military potential of Indonesia. Southeast Asia is not only a geopolitical hub, but also a major gateway for the Europe-Asia undersea internet cables, like the Seamiwi 3, connecting South Korea to Belgium. Most countries are in fact connected to the internet via multiple sea cables, as these offer better protection to disruptions and tapping than land-based ones. These are critical pieces of infrastructure and are therefore thoroughly secured.
Yeah, there's a lot running through there. Wow, I didn't know that. I did not know that. Wow.
Just like whole nations, people need to make sure their own lines of communication are secure. And Atlas VPN provides powerful tools to make your browsing both safer and more enjoyable.
You got me on that, buddy. You got me, sir. That was a great plug.
Discount 3-year plan. Protect in malware, which some say book percent below. Such a global. Back to the video. So why is Indonesia such a global geopolitical hub? And what does this mean for the future? Well, the first simple answer to these questions is, as always, geography. Indonesia is the world's largest archipelagic nation, formed from over 16,000 islands, spread over an area of more than 3 million square miles. Indonesia is comprised of only 5 main islands: Sumatra, Java, majority of Borneo, Sulawesi, and half of Papua. It is a surprisingly huge country, extending across 3 time zones for over 3,000 miles, around the same distance from New York City to Lisbon. Its land borders are with Malaysia, Papua New Guinea, and East Timor. Other neighboring countries include Singapore, the Philippines, Australia, and India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The country is also the 4th most populous nation on Earth, with over 270 million citizens, around 150 of which live on Java.
I can't even speak. I still cannot understand how that many people can fit on. There's more people on that island, was it, than there are in all of Russia or something like that, or it's close. It just blows my mind. Is that a fountain that I'm seeing in front of me? That's pretty cool. Is that okay? So that's a roundabout with a fountain in the middle. That's a giant roundabout. For me, at least, we have roundabouts in America. Let me rephrase that. There are some roundabouts in my area that I'm not even, I can't really get a scale as to what it would be, but I would say that it would kind of be like a little bit bigger than that right there. So it would be like this. You guys are probably laughing. I'm trying to think. If there was a car that drove over it, you could probably park that car in the middle of it, but there wouldn't be much space in between. So that roundabout was, it'd be something like this. And there's 1, 2. There's 2 around the area that I work at. And it's funny because people just don't understand the concept of it. Some people drives me nuts. Pull up and park, and they just wait right here as another car's like over here driving around, and they're like, nah, I'm just going to stay right here and see if that car's going to loop around. And then that car just goes straight, and they're like, okay, now I'll go. And they start to go, but then there's a car over here coming, and they're like, oh, I better wait. And you're sitting behind them going, seize the gap and go. Drives you crazy. Sorry.
Most populated island in the world. The sinking capital, Jakarta, accounts itself for around 10 million residents. Indonesia's size and makeup present some unique challenges, which we will be talking about later. But for now, we need to ask, how does this nature shape Indonesia's strategic value? Indonesia's first strategic value lies in its central position in global sea trade routes. Specifically, its choke points act as gateways, connecting and potentially shutting the access between Indian and Pacific Oceans. The majority of the trade traveling between the Indian and Pacific Oceans passes partially or fully through Indonesia's territorial waters. This strategic value is only compounded by the many choke points that lie at the entrance and exit of these critical waterways. It seems that no matter what it is or where it is traveling, all goods are eventually forced through Indonesia's 4 major choke points at some point in their life cycle. Routes starting at the oil-rich Persian Gulf or destined for Europe are funneled through the Malacca Strait. Those between Asia and Africa typically sail through the Sunda Strait, while deep draft tankers and bulk carriers prefer the deeper waterways of the Lombok and Ombai Wetar Straits. It has been estimated that around 50% of global trade by tonnage passes through these sea lanes each year. And for some resources, this dependence is only amplified. For example, it is estimated that 80% of China's oil imports pass through the Malacca Strait, and that figure rises up to 90% for Japan and South Korea. As Asia's markets continue to develop and their role in the
One ship goes down there. I shouldn't say one ship, but you have a ship that goes down and can shut out just one of those lanes for just a few days. Oh, the amount of turmoil that could probably happen throughout the world. Because, these I almost said these planes. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say now because I've already said it. Those planes, that float on the water, they have their areas where they like to go. And man, it's just one of those being closed. 2 of them would just, we saw what happened when that one ship in the, Straits of Hormuz? A few years ago. That shut everything back for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Oh, that was crazy. It's a lot of power Indonesia has with all that trade going through there. Wow.
The international trade route continues to boom. Indonesia's strategic role over the world's maritime trade is only set to grow. However, 2 main threats hang over these stretches of water, which actually bolster Indonesia's influence as it is encouraged to take an increasingly active role in policing them. First,
absolutely. Sorry, I keep pausing. If you have those 4, I'm going to say choke points because that's what they said, but if you have those 4, I would think that you would want to invest in protecting it, because if some terrorist organization or something took down, had mined it or something like that, and it blows up 3 of them, just imagine I don't know if they lose revenue by not having anything go through there, but if they went through alternate courses and they just found it safer to go that way and they just bypassed that, I would think that would affect the country, but I don't know for sure because I only found out that I knew that the stuff traveled through the China Sea and everything. I just didn't realize it went through Indonesia to do it. Because why would I know that? You would have to be smart to know that. That's why I didn't know that.
These straits are vulnerable to active blockage and piracy. Second, these waterways are already struggling with congestion, which may only escalate in the future as trade volumes and the size of ships that service them continue to grow. Strict safety regulations and continuous trans-regional police controls have kept these stretches of water relatively safe and accessible to this point. However, with a forecasted rise in the domestic consumption of goods and resources in all Asian nations in the upcoming decades, increasing trade is presumably the most critical challenge for these straits.
Give me a second, because the genius that you're all here to watch just spilled tea on himself, because apparently I don't know how to drink. I had to make a little change.
Currently, the Malacca Strait is one of the most important choke points on Earth. Around 10,000 ships pass through the strait every year, but its relatively shallow waters place a natural limit on the size of vessels that can use it. For larger vessels, the only alternatives to the Malacca Strait are also all choke points in Indonesia's territorial waters. The closest is the Sunda Strait, sitting between the islands of Sumatra and Java. This stretch of water, which itself is only around 15 miles wide, and 50 miles long, already services an average of 3,500 ships, transporting around 15 million metric tons of cargo per year. A more popular choice for the largest vessels is the Lombok Strait. With an average depth of 150 meters and 11 miles of width at its narrowest, this route offers a far safer alternative to the large tankers and bulk carriers. For this reason, it is the second most popular of these choke points, with an average of 3,900 ships annually transporting around 140 million metric tons of goods per year, at a combined value of $40 billion US. The third major strait is the Ombai-Wetar, between the island of Timor and Wetar. This passage is extremely deep, making it favorable to the ultra-large crude carriers. Indonesia is a vital player in the world's seaborne trade. Its straits effectively act as valves, connecting and potentially halting the flow of goods between the Pacific and Indian Oceans. This gateway role is also important in explaining why the US and China have turned to Jakarta in search of an ally for their ongoing geopolitical competition. Being the center of the Indo-Pacific region, Indonesia is also at the crossroads of multiple and often conflicting goals of some of the world's largest powers. By far the most influential in this region, China has pushed for the expansion of its economic and diplomatic influence through the Belt and Road Initiative since 2013. As its land section unfurls through Central Asia all the way to Europe, its maritime version covers the whole of Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. From a Chinese perspective, it is essential to bound Southeast Asia to the BRI, both as Beijing looks to create a favorable diplomatic and security environment around its borders, and to bolster its territorial claims in the region, especially on the hotly contested South China Sea. Indonesia has formally adhered to the Maritime Belt and Road Initiative, and China has been its largest trading partner since 2013. In 2019, this trade had a value of around $72 billion US, and now accounts for 43% of Indonesia's foreign trade. By comparison, that's almost the equivalent to its combined trade with the US, Japan, and India. The rise of China's economic and military clout has shifted the global balance of power towards Asia. America had been mostly focused on the Middle East for the majority of the late 1990s and 2000s, outsourcing its commitment to Southeast Asia through its ongoing relationships with major regional partners, such as Australia, Japan, and the Philippines.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they're getting out of that area because of Australia and Japan. And the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait, the oil, and then wanting to be friends with the royal family, and trying to not appear as though they hate Muslims as much as it seems they come across. But there is a big push against Muslims, unfortunately. But yeah, it's this looks like a rhino for some reason. Sorry, just kind of a rhino with little tiny hands. He's like, hey, don't do that. All right. It just popped out to me for a second. There's his eye. He has very low eyes, apparently. Little mouth. He's going, Murr. All right. I lost track of what I was saying.
This largely changed under the Obama administration's Pacific rebound and famously coy pivot to Asia, which was bolstered under the Trump and Biden administrations. As part of this, Indonesia was one of the few Southeast Asian nations to receive the green light from the U.S. State Department to receive American weaponry. The United States also holds numerous military exercises with Indonesia, including the most recent, 2021's Garuda Shield, which was the largest ever between the two countries. Conflicting foreign powers' interests have become the norm in Southeast Asia, as the area yet again becomes the focus of competing defense policy agendas from major powers eager to project their influence over each other's backyard. Indonesia, strategically placed at the center of this region and the Indo-Pacific, yet vital to its access, is in prime position to exploit this reality as its importance only grows over time. Indonesia needs to bolster its own capabilities to avoid being used as a puppet in a foreign power rivalry. If a conflict between the US and China ever visits this region, securing Indonesia's cooperation could drastically tilt the strategic balance in favor of its ally.
Indonesia, if they sided with America, could stop all trade going to China through their area, could stop any of the trade coming through. So China would have to send it around. If the U.S. was there, it would take the ships. Yeah. I don't think they would, but if they sided with China, and I'm not saying that part, I'm saying that China could have their military come through here and stop any trade that would go to a country that would support the U.S., like Japan, stuff like that. China could basically surround this entire area and kind of seize anything coming through. I don't think China would do that, and I don't think Indonesia would want them to do it, because then that would really make Indonesia seem like it did more than just side with it. Likewise, if they sided with the U.S. in any battle, if they were to stop any Chinese ships coming in or out, the same thing, a potential retaliatory issue would go against them. Yeah, that puts you in a tough spot.
Potentially, Indonesia has the size and a favorable geography to turn itself into a major regional naval power. Two main policies have created the bedrock of Jakarta's maritime strategy. The first of this is the Global Maritime Fulcrum, a tangible government plan to boost Indonesia's maritime power. And the second is the Archipelagic Vision, a cultural movement that seeks to support Indonesia's archipelagic national identity. The Global Maritime Fulcrum was a foundational policy of the current president, Joko Widodo's first-term election. This policy is essential to solidifying Indonesia's strategic value between the Indian and Pacific Oceans, and acts as a catalyst for building major regional maritime dominance. Of the 5 pillars laid out in the GMF, 3 focus on domestic affairs, while 2 stress the necessity of, first, expanding maritime cooperation with other countries, and second, the buildup of its naval capabilities. The Indonesian Navy, also known as TNI, have planned a major overhaul of its capabilities through the Minimum Essential Force policy, aiming to become a green water naval power by 2024. Indonesia possesses the 6th largest exclusive economic zone in the world. With its over 6 million square kilometers of water space to patrol, Indonesia's primary security threat has always been the challenge of administrating its numerous territory and population, dispersed over such a fractured landmass. Beyond issues of nationhood and diplomacy, this has a heavy real-world cost. For example, it is estimated that illegal fishing costs Indonesia's economy around $3 billion per year. And its piracy is such a critical issue that Indonesian waters have accounted for around 20% of global piracy attacks in 2017. Piracy has also spilled beyond Indonesia's domestic security, to the point where it has been a major issue in Jakarta's relationship with Australia for years.
I actually thought that most of the pirate stuff would be around Africa, Middle East, kind of area. I wouldn't have thought that with all of, I mean, it does make sense with all of the flow coming through here, but the balls to actually attack when there are so many ships or planes, as I said earlier, planes that, go on the water, because I was stupid.
Many analysts agree that Indonesia lacks a force capable of performing basic surveillance and reconnaissance of its vast internal waters, let alone projection far from its shores. A major reason for the country's lack of capable military is rooted in the government's staunch policy on non-alignment. For example, the country operates a blend of NATO, Russian, and even Chinese-made military equipment. American F-16s operate alongside Russian Su-30s and Su-27, and even armed Chinese CH-4 UAVs. All these machines use different ammunition and parts for repair, causing their use at an operational level to be complex and expensive. This is a cost the Navy cannot afford, as continuously constrained budgets have already forced it to adopt a policy of prioritizing small upgrades on increasingly older vessels. For example, the bulk of its large vessel fleet is composed of 5 Ahmadiyani-class frigates, built around the 1960s in the Netherlands, and the latest addition in the service surface fleets are decades-old, decommissioned South Korean Navy corvettes. It is hoped that the proposed Green Water Fleet will solve both issues, unifying the state internally and allowing it to finally grow influence in the region.
I know it's going to be weird, but you would think with all the countries that ship stuff through there, they, one, would patrol a little bit more. But if Indonesia doesn't want that, then they would give a couple of ships. All the countries give a couple of ships. They don't have to be top of the line, but give something that you were going to decommission. And I understand, but if you train Indonesia to use that material, then when it needs supplies and everything like that, if the U.S. gave them a bunch of old ships and they needed some more material, whatever that could be, devices for it, weapon, whatever, then the U.S. could just say, okay, here you go. There you go. I mean, it saves us and it saves the other countries from patrolling it, and it allows Indonesia the power to patrol it using basically just gifted ships. And if, hey, you need something, you have a big firefight, or you need more missiles for whatever. Yep, there you go. Just send it to them. What does any of those countries lose? You're getting rid of decommissioned stuff. That ship was worthless to you anyways. You were going to probably break it down for scrap metal. Give it to them. Let them do it. It takes less people now for America or Japan or any of these countries to have to send their military or their ships there to patrol. Now Indonesia has it. Yeah, they're going to have a cluster of different kinds of ships, but just give it to them. And when they need not upgrades, but when they need the stuff to, more ammunition, weapons, whatever, just give it to them. Because they would then be in charge of patrolling that. And if it ever came down to, hey, look, we could use some help, or this ship's getting a bit old, well, then you could work out an agreement to where they could buy a ship or something like that, But yeah, I mean, you help them by also helping yourself. You're going to decommission a ship, just give it to them. What were you going to do with that ship anyways? As I said, scrap metal. Give it to them, let them use it.
Indonesia's state ethos is intertwined with its maritime projection. The Indonesian archipelagic vision, also known in the country as Wawasan Nusantara, promotes the development of a united and integrated Indonesian nation. The country is physically split into many different islands, ethnic groups, and dialects, making the building of a united nation a vital, yet long overdue aspect of its existence. At the basis of Indonesian archipelagic concept lies the control of its surrounding seas. Waterways are considered as highways that connect the archipelago throughout, ideally making it one big interconnected island. A lack of capable port infrastructure and transportation investment has created deep contrasts between Indonesia's regional economies, exacerbating regional inequality, entrenching underinvestment, and keeping regional fractures from closing. Smoothing out this regionalism is in part why President Widodo announced in 2019 that the capital of Indonesia would move from Jakarta, an already overcrowded megacity on the main island of Java, where 60% of Indonesia's population currently lives, to Borneo in 2024. The move comes at a great cost, and the location is certainly not the most convenient. The island is not only relatively unpopulated, but is also shared with two other countries, Malaysia and Brunei. Regardless, President Widodo directly cited the strategic value of the new location as the main driving force for the move. And it seems like the costs of moving are vastly outweighed by the strategic value that a more central capital will bring to the country. While on this channel we have mainly focused on external challenges to nations, Indonesia is a country that is shaped by internal division. From the outside, its geography would seem to make it one of the most influential countries on Earth. But in reality, this same geography places limitations on its economic and political development. If Indonesia were to fully implement with solid resources its archipelago state and naval goals, it would become a major power in Asia. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please share.
Cuba. How China plans to invade Taiwan with this ship. Did I say Taiwan earlier? That was my throat. Did I say Taiwan earlier or did I say Cuba? I meant Taiwan if I didn't say it. But I feel like I said Cuba. I don't know. My brain's not braining right now. Okay. Well, this is pretty good. Any more stuff about Indonesia, please send it to me. It's fascinating. All right. Well, until the next time, have a good day. Have a good night.